It was a typical small town. Every day in the summertime at least, you'd find a student studying their textbook, sleeping on the grass. It was really an age of innocence that was destroyed as a result of this horrendous event that occurred in a place of serenity on the campus of a university.
To the citizens of Austin, stay away from the university area. There is a sniper on the university tower firing at will.
I was in a newsroom at Channel 7 getting ready for a radio newscast at 12 noon. It was a routine day. Hey, August 1st, hotter than hell in Austin, not much going on, and I'm trying to figure out, my goodness, what are we going to cover today for TV? It's just got to figure it out. What kind of stories are we going to chase? And just as I was getting ready to go on the air, I heard the police radio, which goes all the time in a newsroom, as you well know. And it says something like, Unit 254, there's been a shot fired at the tower. Can you check it out? 10-4, good buddy. Well, I thought tower drug. Maybe somebody was holding up tower drug. But within minutes, before the noon hour, more reports started coming on. Another shot has been reported from the University of Texas campus. I thought, oh my. I jumped in our mobile unit and headed out to the campus. And I started broadcasting. At that moment, I could see the tower and hear the shots and started broadcasting while driving to the campus.
It's an unbelievable sight. The serene University of Texas campus bathed in very hot sunlight, and apparently a madman located on top of the university tower firing and shooting at any movable target that he can see.
He had a radio up there. I didn't know it at the time, had no idea. But while he was doing his damage, while he was killing people, wounding people, shooting people, he was listening to my broadcast. After it was over, I found out that he had listened to me the most of the time, if not all the time. And I thought, wow, I wonder what would happen if I had known that. What could I have done? Could I have prevented it? I quickly decided no. It was a one-way communication. He could listen, but that was all. And what would I say to a madman who had killed his wife and his mother the night before, cold blood, stabbing them, and then taking the morning to put all the stuff together and go up on the tower to begin shooting at noon. Nothing I could have said or anybody could have said that I know of, if they could communicate with him, could convince him to stop doing what he was doing.
We finally got to the South Mall, walking behind the business building. We saw the big puffs of smoke coming from the top of the tower. We saw the people lying in pools of blood down on the mall. People behind hedges, behind the banisters, balustrades along Inter-Campus Drive. We went down and went down behind the balustrade, and I had the camera down and I was getting ready to turn around and start shooting back up at the tower again. There was a guy smoking a cigarette, and he said, a guy was standing there where you are about 10 minutes ago and got shot right in the head. a guy who had pulled a couple of people off of the mall. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was there. Charlie and I interviewed him.
One of those who is out of breath now after running out onto the mall rescuing those who have been shot is Brian Ellison of Austin, who's been in Vietnam and has been back for 2 years. Brian, how many have you gone out to rescue?
Today, 2.
What did you have to do?
Run hard and keep low.
And I remembered thinking, this is just an illustration of how surreal it was. I hate to use the word surreal, but that's what it was.
The first shot he fired, after getting up there, getting prepared, and looking all around, the campus had let out between classes, and he looked around to decide the first person he's going to shoot. And he shot Clair Wilson, who was 8 months pregnant, and shot her in the womb, killing his unborn baby. And she survived. What manner of person would decide the first person I'm going to shoot is I'm going to shoot an unborn baby?
But I could see that there was a pregnant one. We needed to get her. So James and I ran out to him. She was pregnant. I could throw her over my shoulder, but she's not a pregnant woman. So I grabbed her ankles, James grabbed her wrist, and we carried her off that way. We ran as fast as we could, and I was sweating like a pig. And my glasses, I wore glasses back then. I'm blind without my glasses. And as I was going down the stairs carrying Claire, my glasses slowly fell off my face. So we got Claire under the statue of Jefferson Davis, and we set her down there, and then I had to go back out to get my glasses. A bunch of people there that picked Claire up and carried her to the ambulance. I remember as I was running back with Claire, I could imagine a bullet hitting me, and in my mind's eye, it was right in the middle of the spine, between the shoulder blades, and I can still feel a cold spot, about the size of a dime, when I think about it. It was but no, there was going to get her was never in question.
There were instances everywhere of heroism like that. In addition to the horror, heroism, I think, probably was the highlight of the day.
Normally I would have walked over the South Mall itself, but I made a left turn on the Intercampus Drive and went down to what was then the post office on the campus, and went to check my post office box, 7904, and then went over to the Union and sat the south end of the Union where there was a television set, and that's important. And the TV, it was maybe 10 minutes till noon. A picture appeared on the black and white big TV screen there in the Union, where I was sitting just at the south end where the doors go out to the West Mall. And the announcer said,
Ladies and gentlemen, here is a KLRN news bulletin. Once again, a sniper has taken up a position on the observation deck, on the tower, on the main building, on the campus of the University of Texas, and is firing with his high-powered rifle.
They got the camera on the tower, and you could see puffs of smoke. And at that point, I and several other folks said, we got to do something, we got to stop people. So we started saying, if you can see him, he can see you. I'll never forget, I yelled that at a guy going up the steps there in the south part of the Union, and it wasn't 10 minutes, 5 minutes later, that he was shot through a window.
We heard some pops off in the distance, like that. We could tell something was happening on the main mall. So in our infinite wisdom, we decided some fool had some firecrackers left over from the 4th of July, was throwing them on the main mall, and we said, oh, that guy's going to get in a lot of trouble, you know. So, and I can remember distinctly, told the guys, this is nothing, guys. I'm going on to class. I'll see you tomorrow. I turned to go to my right, and my body refused to move any further than one step. I'll never know what, somehow my sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, said don't move any further to your right. And I remember this like I've relived this moment every day, I swear, for the last 60 years. There was no reason I could see that. I was really trying to urge my body to move on, but wherever the motor center is in your brain, it told me to quit. Just don't move any further to your right. About 15 seconds later, the shot came past my right ear and it hit Mr. Walchuk. He was a 38-year-old military veteran with 6 kids and a wife to support. He was working on his PhD in political science. He had stopped by the newsstand to get some magazine that would help in one of his classes, like The Economist or whatever, you know. But of course, as soon as that happened, we ran back inside the drugstore. And that's where I stayed the rest of the rampage. But people don't realize we didn't have an EMS service in Austin back then. The ambulances were run by the funeral homes. They all had, of course, they had some basic training in EMS, I suppose, but there wasn't really a EMS service per se. It was the funeral homes were on strict rotation for the wrecks that happened around the town, you know, and but of course all of them got called into action at this point.
Martinez came on around and started firing his pistol. I jumped out past Martinez, shot the sniper white head man full in the face, instantly jacked in a second shot and shot him again and hit him inside the face.
I grabbed the shotgun from McCoy and I fired one more time running up at him, and I fired just before he hit the deck.
I came over to look at the sniper, and at some point I had an urge to throw him over the top of the tower, but I didn't.
This is Neil Spouse with a bulletin from the KTBC radio newsroom. The sniper is dead.
Finally, we realized it was over when Neil said on the radio it was over, and I was just part of a wall of people that came out of all the stores along the drag.
All of us were just, you know, in shock. How did this happen? What's going on? It was not, I don't recall people talking very loudly. It was rather hushed. And we were just looking at people being brought down from the tower, not knowing who was alive and who was dead. You didn't know, but we knew that there were human bodies.
Boy, you talk about surreal. Nobody was saying a word. Nobody was yelling or screaming or get the blankety blank or anything like that. You know, we were just part of a wall of humanity. I mean, especially for the co-op. I mean, there were a ton of people in the co-op. But we were all just pressed east towards the West Mall and then onto the main mall. And that's where I saw people being brought out of the tower that had been shot. And the aftermath of all the people that had been shot on the mall was really a gory, I guess is the word I'm looking for, a scene. It was really something. I milled around for a while with everybody else, and then another guy came up and was standing by me. We were both kind of listening to what Spells was saying, and over his monitor, I heard, okay, here's the name everybody in town's been wanting to hear. It's Charles Joseph Whitman. He was a sniper. He's been identified as a sniper.
The story of the sniper is not ended. It's not ended for the families who have loved ones to bury and loved ones to care for. It's not ended.
I did follow up on Whitman in life, but it was almost immediately. And of course, part of that was, who was this guy? And we followed up. We interviewed his faculty advisor. We interviewed his scoutmaster. who served with him in the Boy Scouts at Troop 5. And we also talked to several people that were around him and people who knew him. His faculty advisor said he was a good student. He did good work. He did neat work. I thought was kind of interesting. And then his scoutmaster said he was a good Boy Scout. He took scouts on campouts, and they liked him. So we did follow up Whitman, and we tried to follow up his father, because in the notes that Whitman left after killing his mother and his wife in separate places, cold blood, with knives, stabbing him in the chest, he wrote notes. And in that, he said, I'm writing these notes to save them the humiliation of what I am about to do. He knew what he was getting ready to do. He wrote these notes, and he said he killed his wife, whom he loved dearly, his mother, whom he loved dearly, and did that to save them the humiliation of what he was about to do. But he also said in those notes that he hated his father, and that his father was a bad influence on his life.
For most of Austin, the events of this day have been more than any could comprehend. This is Neil Spells. Thank you and good evening.
I do think about it because it was so impactful, and frankly, in retrospect, here 60 years later, it was so important. It had an importance historically that very few events have had, especially here in Austin.
I guess that's one thing that's really hit me today, that 60 years later, just the enormity of everything I've done in the ensuing years since 1966, that I wouldn't have had any of it, except for just that one happenstance of just being out of harm's way for a split second. Back then, that was really an anomaly. Something like that was just something that was unheard of. And now it seems like something terrible is happening every day.
And when you add everything up, add everybody up, over 1,000 years of human life on this planet was taken away that day. And I think of that. A millennia of memories that we would have had, and we don't.
We come together to memorialize the 17 lives lost.
We need closure. We need to recognize the profound importance of what happened. A lot of students don't know. They don't have any idea what this is about.
I've asked myself many times over the last several years, how can it help to have a memorial? But truly, it's not the stone that we dedicate, but ourselves. So I ask you to join me in making a vow, to treasure the ones we walk with right now, each moment.
We went up to the memorial as they began to prepare the ground, and we saw a little tent and 3 men working. And we went over and asked them what they were doing. And they said it was for this monument that's going to be done for the tower shooting. And it's very important.
Thomas Frederick Ekman.
Mark Jerome Gabor.
Karen Joan Griffith.
Officer Billy Paul Speed.
Edna Elizabeth Rose Townsley.